Take the guest room or move out. That's what my husband told me when his pregnant sister and her husband arrived unannounced. It would be great if you're gone by the weekend, she added with a grin. So I left. But only days later, that smile disappeared and panic replaced it. She's lying, Mom. Please tell me she's lying. Pack your things and take the guest room tonight or leave. It's your choice. Julian, my husband, delivered these words while calmly spreading cream cheese on his bagel, as if he were commenting on the weather rather than ending our 7-year marriage. Behind him, his pregnant sister Gabriella leaned against my kitchen doorway, one hand on her stomach, already inspecting my countertops. Actually, she added with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, we prefer you be gone by the weekend. We need to start the nursery. The pharmaceutical contract I'd been reviewing slipped from my hands, $22 million in consulting fees fluttering to the marble floor. I stood frozen in my home office, still wearing my reading glasses, trying to process the impossible. This penthouse, with its floor-to-ceiling windows over Central Park, represented 15 years of 16-hour days, missed birthdays, and sacrificed weekends. Every square foot had been built on my work, my strategy, my problem-solving skills. Excuse me, I said, my voice steady despite the hollow feeling inside. Before we go further, if you've ever been underestimated or sidelined by family who thought they knew best, please consider subscribing. Your support helps share important stories about standing up for yourself. Julian didn't even look up. Gabriella and Leonardo need stability during the pregnancy. The master bedroom has the space they require, and the attached bathroom will help with her morning sickness. His tone was practiced, probably rehearsed while I was at last night's board meeting that ran until midnight. At 42, I'd built what many women of my mother's generation never imagined. Whitmore Consulting Group employed 12 people who relied on my leadership and vision to navigate corporate restructuring with precision. Just that morning, I'd called my mother in Ohio to share the pharmaceutical contract news. Her voice had swelled with pride as she told her neighbor Margaret, who still believed women should focus on supporting their husbands. Margaret had gone silent. Now, in the kitchen I'd renovated with Norwegian marble and German appliances, I watched the man whose student loans I'd paid off, whose career I'd advanced through my business connections, casually evict me from my own life. Julian. I set down my coffee mug carefully, the Hermes porcelain clicking against the counter. This is my home. I own this penthouse. We are married, he replied, finally meeting my eyes with calculated coldness. That makes it our home. Family needs come first. Gabriella stepped further into the kitchen, her fingers trailing along my cabinets. These will be perfect for baby food storage, she murmured, already claiming the space. Her husband Leonardo appeared behind her with 2 suitcases, his man bun catching the morning light. He gave me the polite but dismissive nod you'd offer hotel staff. I have the Henderson presentation at 3, I said, sounding disconnected from myself. The entire board will be there. Then you better get packing. Gabriella chirped, rubbing her belly in practice circles. We need to set up before my 2 p.m. Dr. Sepp's appointment. The absurdity hit me. This morning I'd woken as Rosalie Whitmore, co-owner of a $5 million penthouse, featured in Forbes as a female entrepreneur disrupting traditional consulting models. Now I was being told to pack like a college student leaving a dorm. Julian continued his breakfast, adding tomatoes with surgical precision. This was the man who had stood at our wedding altar, who'd celebrated my first $1 million client, who'd made love to me in this kitchen just last week. Preston and Associates passed you over for partner again, didn't they? The words escaped before I could stop them. His jaw tightened. That has nothing to do with this. But it had everything to do with this. For 3 years Julian had watched younger architects rise past him, sat at holiday parties where people asked about my business before his, endured dinners where colleagues' wives gushed about my magazine features while he nursed his whiskey. Mrs. Whitmore. Gabriella had started calling me that recently, despite being family. The movers will need access to the master closet. Could you leave your keys? Movers. They'd arranged movers before even telling me. I looked at the contract pages, scattered across the floor, each one representing security for my employees, growth for my company, proof of every risk I'd taken. My phone buzzed, a text from my assistant. Goldman team confirmed for 3 p.m., excited about the proposal. I have meetings, I said, not sure who I was telling. Cancel them, Julian suggested, biting into his bagel, or work from a hotel. You love hotels, remember? All those business trips. The accusation was unspoken but clear. All those nights I spent building an empire instead of playing the devoted wife. Leonardo began measuring the living room with his phone, likely planning where their furniture would go. My furniture, my carefully chosen pieces from galleries and estate sales. The guest room, Julian began, is a closet with a Murphy bed. I finished. It sets temporary, he assured me, though his eyes said otherwise, just until they settled. Gabriella laughed softly. Oh, Julian, stop pretending. We all know this is better for everyone. Rosalie Sipp's always working anyway. Barely uses this place. The home where I'd built a library of first editions, a sanctuary from the corporate grind, believing I was creating a life with someone who valued me beyond my income. My phone rang. Marcus Thornfield's name appeared. The CEO from Singapore, offering to triple my income. I'd turned him down 3 times, because Julian begged me to stay in New York, promised we were partners, swore our life here meant everything. I let it go to voicemail, though something inside me shifted. Gabriella moved to the windows, calculating square footage like an appraiser. Leonardo, look at this view, she called. The baby Sepp's playpen could go right here. My imported Italian coffee machine caught her attention next. She stroked its chrome surface with possessiveness, reducing my early morning ritual to another item on her list. Leonardo, dressed in a linen shirt signaling creative freedom, announced, "This space has incredible potential. Once we optimize the flow, it'll still be perfect for raising a conscious child. A conscious child in my penthouse, paid for, with my problem solving for Fortune 500 companies, while Leonardo likely attended drum circles calling it networking. The movers will be here at noon," Gabriella said, not to me, but to Julian, as if I no longer existed in my own home. They'll set up the nursery furniture immediately. You've already bought nursery furniture? My voice cracked. She turned to me with patient condescension. We've been planning this for months, Rosalie. Julian didn't tell you. Months? The word struck like a blow. Since the pregnancy, Leonardo added, oblivious to the tension. 7 months of secret planning. 7 months of my husband plotting with his sister while lying beside me each night. Show me the guest room, I heard myself say. They smiled, all 3 of them, as if I'd finally accepted their plan. Gabriella led the way with the confidence of a tour guide, Julian following without meeting my eyes, Leonardo typing on his phone. The walk down my hallway felt like a funeral procession. We passed my home office, the contract still scattered on the floor. We passed my library of signed first editions. We passed the bathroom I'd renovated with a Japanese soaking tub, my one indulgence after a brutal year of work. Here we are, Gabriella announced, opening what had once been our storage room. The space was maybe 8 by 10 feet, dominated by a Murphy bed. The single window faced the building's HVAC system. The carpet, God, I'd forgotten there was carpet, smelled of dust and old paint. It sets perfect for your needs, Gabriella said brightly. Minimal distractions for all that work you do. Leonardo nodded approvingly. Very zen, great for meditation. A meditation practice in a room that felt like a cell with better lighting. The bathroom steps down the hall, Julian added neutrally, you share it with guests. Where will I put my clothes? I asked, noting the absence of a closet. There's a wardrobe in basement storage, Gabriella offered. Very vintage, very authentic. I stood in the doorway, blocking their exit, and felt something inside me sever, not break, but release. The part of me that compromised, that made excuses for Julian's ego, simply ceased to exist. I need to make some calls, I said, stepping aside. Of course, Gabriella chirped. Take all the time you need within reason. The movers will need access. Julian lingered for a moment, sensing the shift, but when I met his eyes, he flinched and followed his sister. I stood alone, listening to their voices drift from the master bedroom. My bedroom, Gabriella was describing where the crib would go, how they'd baby-proof the windows, how the walk-in closet would store all the baby supplies. My walk-in closet where my clothes hung in color-coded rows, where my shoes lined custom shelves, where I'd installed a mirror worth more than most people's rent. My phone buzzed, emails from my assistant about the presentation, a text from my mother asking about my morning, the normal world spinning while mine had reversed. I looked out at the HVAC machinery through the window and made a decision. Not the emotional, reactive one they expected, but something else entirely. Something requiring the same strategy I used in corporate restructuring, except now I'd restructure my life. Furniture being moved echoed from the master bedroom. My furniture, my life being rearranged to accommodate people who saw me as an inconvenience. I pulled up Marcus Thornfield's contact, my finger hovering over the call button as Gabriella's laughter drifted down the hall, bright and sure as though she'd already won. Instead of calling, I set the phone aside and made a different decision. One decision could change everything. If they wanted to manipulate my life, I had to understand the rules they'd been playing by. The penthouse was quiet. At 6 a.m. Gabriella and Leonardo wouldn't surface before 10 o'clock. People without full-time jobs rarely did. Julian had left for his office an hour earlier, pecking my cheek with the mechanical precision of someone ticking off a daily task. I walked barefoot through rooms I'd designed, feeling like an intruder, and headed to my office where our shared desktop waited. Julian had never been good with technology. His passwords were simple variations of birth dates and anniversaries, dates that clearly meant little to him. I opened his email, my fingers steady despite the betrayal I was about to confirm. The inbox loaded, revealing a folder labeled Family Planning. My stomach turned. The first email, 3 months old, read, Jules, she won that fight us if we present it right. You know how Rosalie is, she hates scenes. Just tell her it's Sechin temporary and she still accept it. Julian Sepp's reply made my hands shake. You supper right, she has plenty of money. The business is doing well. She won't even notice the financial adjustment, plus she avoids confrontation. We can make this work. Financial adjustment. I was being treated like a line item to optimize. I scrolled through weeks of correspondence, each email another cut. They had planned the timing to act after my largest contract closed, ensuring I'd be too busy to resist. They had strategized the approach to be sudden and decisive, giving me no chance to defend myself. Gabriella had even researched tenant laws, concluding that as Julian's wife, I had minimal legal rights if he supported his pregnant family member. One message from 2 weeks ago stopped my breathing. Julian had written, has been thinking about the trust situation. Rosalie must have family money she hasn't mentioned. No one builds a business this fast without seed capital. Her father died years ago. There had to be life insurance. I still do some digging. My phone rang, shattering the morning silence. My mother's picture appeared on the screen, last Christmas, smiling in the cashmere sweater I had sent. Morning, Mom, I said, steadying my voice. Rosalie, honey, something strange happened yesterday, she said, her worry clear. Julian called, asking about your father's SIP's insurance policy. Wanted to know if there were investments we hadn't yet told him about. The room spun. What did you tell him? I asked. The truth. Your father SIP's insurance barely covered medical bills and the funeral. We used every penny for his treatment. I lied smoothly. Don't set worry, Mom. Everything sets fine. Early meeting. Her intuition sharpened. What SEP's really happening? You sound different. I couldn't tell her that her son-in-law was digging through our family tragedy in search of non-existent wealth. I hung up and returned to the emails, my vision blurring, not from tears yet, but from pure crystallized rage. They weren't just planning to take my home, they were inventorying my life for assets to claim. A new message appeared in Julian Sepp's inbox, visible from Gabriella Sepp's screen. Movers confirmed for noon. Once her stuff is in the guest room, phase 2 begins. Dad Sip's lawyer says if she abandons the marital home, it strengthens J Sip's position for assets division. Assets division. They were planning a divorce I hadn't considered, making me appear as the one who abandoned the home. I screenshot everything, emailing the evidence to my personal account with the precision of a corporate audit, then cleared the browser history to protect my discovery. Back in the guest room, I opened my filing cabinet for normal documents but found the Thornfield International folder instead. Marcus Thornfield had pursued me for months, offering a position that would triple my income, Chief Strategy Officer for their Asian expansion based in Singapore, with housing and a driver included. I had declined 6 months ago while Julian stood behind me, insisting our life and future were in New York. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. Sarah, my best friend since college, stood at the door in tennis whites, barely containing her anger. We need to talk, she said, stepping in. Her eyes scanned the living room, Leonardo's meditation mat, Gabriella's pregnancy books. By God, it's true. What's true? I already knew. Sarah had sources everywhere. The country club, charity boards, Manhattan's network. She described Gabriella boasting at the juice bar about putting a career woman in her place. She explained Julian's reasoning that I was jealous of Gabriella's pregnancy. That's why I had to be removed. And there's Seps more, Sarah continued. Sep's been planning this since she got pregnant. 7 months, she said, recounting Gabriella's conversation with her book club. They had pathologized my success and used my achievements as evidence of instability. I sank onto the Murphy bed, which groaned under my weight. The precision of their planning was almost impressive. What are you going to do? Sarah asked. I looked at the Thornfield folder and my screenshots. I am going to give them exactly what they want, and then disappear with everything they never realized they needed. Sarah squeezed my hand. Be careful. Money, a place to stay, an alibi, call me if you need anything. After 5 minutes of stillness, I transformed into someone Gabriella and Julian had never met, a strategist who understood that personal strategy required the same meticulous planning as a corporate takeover. That afternoon, while Gabriella hosted her prenatal yoga instructor and Leonardo conducted a creative visioning session on the balcony, I slipped out with my laptop under the pretext of an emergency client meeting. I went to a coffee shop, 20 blocks away, far from Julian's circle. I opened my laptop and began assembling my war documents, receipts, invoices, and bank statements from the last 7 years. The kitchen renovation alone cost $32,000. Italian marble, German appliances, custom cabinets. Gabriella was now filling them with her supplements. Every asset was documented: furniture, smart home systems, art, all purchased with my money, traceable through business accounts. My phone buzzed. Marcus Thornfield's assistant called. Miss Whitmore, Mr. Thornfield wants to confirm your acceptance. Contract ready. Relocation can begin immediately. How immediately? I asked, watching a couple share dessert, unaware of the storm brewing. 2 weeks, apartment furnished. Signing bonus $200,000 upon execution. Send the contract, I said. I sign today. I sat in my car in the parking garage, staring at concrete. 5 years of living with Julian now felt like a tomb, but daylight appeared. The dirt shifted as I clawed my way out. Tuesday, I met with Rebecca Chin, my attorney who'd structured my business to withstand situations like this. Her office smelled of leather and authority. The penthouse lease is in your name, she confirmed. Julian insisted, to protect assets from business liability. You can terminate with 60 days notice or transfer if he qualifies financially. Based on his income, he doesn't set. Wednesday, I went to Chase Bank at 9 a.m. with Thomas, my personal banker of 6 years. Our joint account had $3,043, groceries and utilities. Money, everything else, the real funds, were in business accounts he couldn't touch. New cards, Thomas asked, already working. New everything, credit cards, numbers, passwords, all canceled. Julian's lunch cards, golf membership, wine subscription, all gone before he realized. Thursday, I met the movers at a storage facility in Queens to catalog everything legally and precisely. Each item photographed, receipts matched. Marcus, the former military logistics officer coordinating, appreciated my thoroughness. Saturday, 8 a.m., he confirmed 3 trucks, 20 men, 4 hours to clear everything. That evening, I called my mother. I step him, leaving, Julian, I said simply. She exhaled, releasing years of restraint. Your father never liked him, weak handshake energy. Moving to Singapore. 2 weeks. She mentioned grandmother's pearls, worn when she left my grandfather in 1952 after betrayal. She packed them with a note. New beginnings deserve old blessings. Beneath the velvet lining, a cashier's check for $50,000 and another note. Your father's secret account. Consider this his permission to soar. Tears came silently as I held the pearls, then placed them in my bag with the check. My father, even from beyond, protected me. I emerged from the guest room to Gabriella directing a catering team. Oh, Rosalie, perfect timing, she said, pointing delivery men toward the dining room. Little dinner party tonight. Nothing fancy. You don't set mine, do you? Rhetorical question. She'd already set the table with my grandmother's sterling silver and Waterford crystal. Who seps coming? I asked. The Prestons, Wheelers, Mitchell, maybe 12 people, she said, circling her belly. You still join? One set you. Or maybe eat in the kitchen. By 7 p.m., my penthouse was Gabriella's stage. She floated among guests, elegant, rehearsed, accepting compliments on a home I paid for. Julian moved through the room with unusual confidence. I stood in the corner, wine untouched, watching an elaborate theft unfold in real time. Playing the role of the successful host in a home he hadn't contributed to, Julian occasionally glanced at me with a mix of warning and smugness. Excuse me. Mrs. Wheeler appeared at my elbow, her voice low and uncertain. I stepped. I'm sorry, but who are you? Are you with the catering team? The room didn't go silent, but attention subtly shifted, heads turning in anticipation. Julian started toward us, ready with an explanation. But I spoke first. I set Mom Rosalie Whitmore, Julian Sepp's wife. I own this penthouse. Mrs. Wheeler Sepp's eyebrows rose. Oh, I Sepp, so sorry. I just assumed. It sets an easy mistake, I said, my voice carrying just enough edge to make Julian pause mid-step. I Setzman staying in the guest room temporarily while Gabriella and Leonardo prepare for their baby. The confusion in the room was almost satisfying. Mrs. Preston's sharp eyes assessed the scene, measuring social dynamics with decades of Manhattan experience. How generous of you, she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. Gabriella swooped in with practiced charm. Rosalie Sepp's been so accommodating, she works long hours. The guest room suits her schedule better. The evening deteriorated from there. I retreated to the kitchen under the pretense of checking on caterers, seeking refuge from the performance of my own erasure. An hour later, Leonardo found me, wine flushing his cheeks and loosening his already minimal filter. You know you Sestra really lucky, he slurred, leaning on the fridge. Gabriella wanted you gone from day one, out on the street. I watched him sway slightly, keeping composure. No, 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 he corrected. We need her rent money for a few more weeks, just until the next bonus cycle. Then he gestured vaguely. Then you can go. Not a revelation, but confirmation. I wasn't just being replaced. I was being financially drained first. Interesting, I said, filing this confession with the evidence I'd been collecting. Leonardo poured another glass of the $200 Bordeaux I saved. Gabriella Seps got it all figured out. Always has. Before he could elaborate, he shuffled back toward the party, muttering about finding his wife. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and strategic avoidance. I watched Gabriella dominate the room while Julian accepted praise for a home I had paid for, witnessing my life being rewritten with me cast as a footnote. At precisely 10:30, Gabriella clutched her stomach. Oh, Julian, something's wrong. The room hushed. Within minutes, they were heading for the door. Gabriella leaning on her brother. Rosalie will handle cleanup. Julian called over his shoulder. The door closed on their manufactured emergency, leaving me with Leonardo, 12 confused guests, and the remnants of a dinner party I hadn't hosted. Mrs. Preston lingered. Interesting evening, she said. Then added softly, I knew your father. He would not have tolerated this. Her words lingered as I spent 2 hours cleaning. Leonardo sprawled on my sofa asking for water or snacks. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Sarah Sipp's screenshots made my blood run cold. Gabriella Sipp's private Instagram, supposedly secure, told a different story. Posts from months ago showed my penthouse. Cannot wait to raise our baby here. Dated 2 weeks before she told Julian. Planning the nursery in our new home from 6 weeks in. Gratitude for everything falling into place from 3 months back. This wasn't opportunistic. It was premeditated, executed with precision. I had been marked from the start. Leonardo snored on the sofa, his empty wine glass tipped, leaving a ring I normally would have cleaned. I left it as a small rebellion. I walked to my bedroom window, city lights sparkling below, indifferent to the quiet devastation of marriages. Saturday would be my Independence Day. Barely sleeping, I reviewed logistics like a corporate merger. At 5 a.m., I rose, showered in the inconsistent guest bathroom, and dressed black slacks, white silk blouse, and my grandmother's pearls, ready for serious business. By 7:45 a.m., I watched 3 large trucks turn onto the street. Robert, the doorman, gave a knowing nod. Big day, Mrs. Whitmore. The biggest. At exactly 8 a.m., 20 movers entered with military precision. Marcus, lead coordinator, had my floor plans, photos, and itemized lists. Green dots for take, red for leave. Red items, Julian's gaming chair, the Murphy bed, and a lamp Gabriella brought. Start with the large furniture, work down to boxes. Marcus confirmed. Coffee and pastries were in the truck. Elevator shuttled furniture efficiently. Up empty, down full. Sectional sofa went first, followed by the dining table. Each item removed felt like excising a necessary tumor. Leonardo appeared, disheveled in silk pajamas. What's Seps happening? Why are people here? I set mun moving out, I said simply, checking items off my list. Gabriella suggested I leave by the weekend. I set mun taking her advice. He realized when the 85-inch OLED TV was carried out. Wait, you can take that. We use that. You use it. I own it, I corrected. Gabriella stormed out in a silk robe, pregnant belly visible, outrage on her face. Stop, you can do this. This is theft. I pulled out my phone, showing the meticulously prepared receipts. Sofa purchased March 2021. Dining table December 2020. Kitchen appliances, all mine, every piece. You live here? She sputtered. You're no longer paying for it. How you furnish it is your concern, I said. Julian arrived last, hair messy, shirt misbuttoned, puffy-faced. He took in the empty room, Gabriella near tears, and froze. Rosalie, we need to talk, he said. The window for discussion had closed. This is extreme, he insisted. I watched movers carry out the California king bed. Where are we supposed to sleep? That Sepp's your problem, Julian, I said. Perhaps Leonardo Sepp's consulting can help. Gabriella Sepp's tears flowed. How can you do this to a pregnant woman? To family? Family? Bitter taste. Family doesn't exile relatives, plan secret coups, or treat one another like tenants. Marcus confirmed completion. Just kitchen and office furniture remained. Gabriella grabbed Leonardo. Call someone. This can be legal. Oh, it's completely legal, I said, showing documentation from Rebecca. Every item purchased with my money. Receipts ready. Movers continued efficiently. Coffee maker, smart home system, expensive water filter, all gone. The penthouse looked massive, empty, echoing. Gabriella stood in the former living room. Leonardo fumbled with his phone. Julian frozen. Final document, I said, holding the lease. This lease is in my name alone. The building has been notified as of Monday you stirred trespassing. 48 hours. Julian tried to speak. Gabriella clutched her belly. Leonardo froze. Where will we go? Gabriella asked. No longer my concern, I said. Marcus had the final inventory sheet. You wanted me gone by the weekend. Consider it done. The elevator carried me down, ascending from hell into daylight. Robert held the lobby door. Well done, Mustam. My car contained essentials, documents, and my grandmother's pearls. Drive to JFK, 53 minutes, phone silent. Messages piled up from Julian, Gabriella, Leonardo, and surprisingly Julian's mother, Eleanor. Voicemails played like a symphony of desperation. Julian attempts at authority, then pleading. Gabriella, hysteria. Concern for her baby. Leonardo confused query about the coffee maker. Eleanor worried about family reputation. Not my safety, just appearances. 3 hours into the flight to Singapore, messages continued. Monday, Gabriella called. Julian said you have a trust fund, she cried. Where is it? Gabriella, there is no trust fund, never was. You stir lying. My father left medical bills and a $50,000 life insurance policy. Every penny You've been enjoying comes from my consulting firm. The business Julian called my little hobby. Silence. Julian promised, once you were gone, we settled access money that never existed. He lied to you, I said, or he lied to himself so thoroughly he believed it. Either way, they had been conned by their own brother. The sound Gabriella made wasn't quite crying, wasn't quite screaming, something primal and defeated. We have nothing. We have nowhere to go. The landlord locked us out this morning. Julian Sepp's credit cards don't set work. They were sitting in Leonardo's car with suitcases. That sounds difficult, I said, surprised at how little satisfaction I felt. Instead, there was emptiness, a hollow where my marriage had once been. By Tuesday, the collapse was complete. Sarah, my ever-faithful intelligence network, called with updates. Julian had to explain to colleagues why he'd lost his prestigious address. The story spread fast. He tried to steal his successful wife's home and ended up homeless. The Prestons, whose dinner party had been the final humiliation, were vocal in their disapproval. Mitchell, the new partner Julian was trying to impress, is telling everyone, Sarah reported. The whole firm knows Julian was essentially a kept man who bit the hand that fed him. Gabriella and Leonardo found emergency housing in a 2-bedroom Queens apartment, far from the Manhattan penthouse she'd commandeered. Her Instagram went dark. The carefully curated lifestyle was impossible to maintain. The baby's nursery, once planned in my bedroom, was now a cramped corner with a brick wall view. Julian moved back to his parents' home in Connecticut, a 43-year-old man returning to his childhood bedroom with nothing but pride and empty promises. Eleanor, I learned through mutual contacts, was mortified, her successful son reduced to a cautionary tale of greed and ingratitude. Wednesday evening, Singapore time. I called my mother. She answered immediately. Tell me you sitter safe, she said. I sepame safe, mom. I sepame in Singapore. I have the job, the apartment, everything. Silence stretched for a moment. Then she exhaled, a sound carrying decades of wisdom and worry. Good, she said. And Julian, the family, they're managing. I added generously. 3 months had passed since that Saturday morning exodus. Singapore had become more than an escape, it was home. My office at Thornfield International occupied a corner of the 32nd floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Marina Bay. The space was mine, designed with clean lines, warm woods, and a single painting by a local artist symbolizing new beginnings. My team of 30 professionals treated me with genuine respect. They called me Miss Whitmore, not out of protocol but because they valued my expertise. When I spoke, people took notes. When I suggested strategies, they were implemented. No subtle undermining, no whispered judgments, no need to soften competence for fragile egos. The apartment Marcus Thornfield's company provided exceeded expectations. 23rd floor, 2 bedrooms, alone, a kitchen for my cooking, a living room furnished exactly to my taste. No committee decisions, no compromises, no explanations required. Every morning, sunlight reflected off the bay, coffee brewed in peaceful silence. I felt contentment I hadn't in years. Then my phone pinged. Julian Whitmore. Subject line, please read important. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. 6 pages of rambling text appeared. A manifesto of regret, self-pity, and manipulation. Was been in therapy, he wrote, as if 2 months could undo 7 years of diminishment. I understand now how I failed you. We had something special. We could have that again, Rosalie. Breathtaking delusion. He wrote of our early days, conveniently leaving out his constant need to be more successful, subtle sabotage of my ambitions, and his family's treatment of me as an outsider. Marriage counseling, communication workshops, even a suggestion that I could keep my Singapore job and commute, logistically impossible for a marriage dead long before Gabriella arrived. I know you sister angry, one paragraph read, but anger fades. Love remains. Love, he had chosen his sister over his wife, conspired to steal my home, drained my bank accounts, and now lectured about love. I forwarded the email to Rebecca, my lawyer, with a single line. Please add to harassment documentation. No response needed. The rest of the story came through professional networks and Sarah's reports. Gabriella delivered a healthy baby girl 2 weeks ago. Instagram showed a sparse post from a cramped apartment. No designer nursery, no professional photos. Caption, "Welcome to the world, Isabella." Comments were minimal. Society had moved on. Leonardo, according to LinkedIn, was now a freelance creative consultant, unemployed but unwilling to admit it. His viral smoothie video was buried deep in his profile. Julian's fall was total. Preston and Associates restructured, eliminating his position. Corporate speak for your scandal. Embarrassed us. Leave. He updated LinkedIn to seeking new opportunities. But architecture depends on reputation. Who would hire a man who tried to evict his wife from her home? Sarah called one evening. You'll never guess who I saw at Whole Foods, she said. Eleanor Whitmore, buying generic brands, looking 10 years older. Julian living with his parents, dependent on them despite years of projecting success. Gabriella had applied for full-time retail at Nordstrom, a shock for someone who'd acted like employment was beneath her. I stirred my pasta, feeling something complex. Not satisfaction, not pity, but the necessary recognition of what had been and what remained. That night, on my balcony overlooking Singapore, I reflected. No one knew me as Mrs. Whitmore. Here, my success wasn't threatening. I could build something entirely my own. A text from my mother. Your grandmother would be proud. You didn't just leave a bad situation. You built something better. She was right. They had tried to erase me. By stepping away, I hadn't destroyed them. I had removed the foundation they had relied upon. The tears I shed weren't for Julian, the marriage, or wasted years. They were for relief, recognition, and understanding. Walking away wasn't giving up. It was the greatest victory. If this story of calculated justice resonated with you, hit the like button. My favorite moment, when Rosalie revealed the lease was in her name alone, watching their faces realize the trust fund never existed. What was your favorite moment of justice? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to catch more gripping stories of betrayal and triumph.